All right, folks, we are slowly getting ready. We've got a little bit of time until the game starts, so we're not in a huge rush. And I'm watching this Northwestern Michigan State game right now. This has all the earmarkings of overtime. I think we've seen this many times before on BTN. Anyway, good to be joining you. Galen Clavio here. We're going to have Zion Brown from the Indy Star and WIUX joining us in a little bit. We're going to have Mason Williams join us a little bit later. We're going to watch the end of this Northwestern Michigan State game, and then we got a little bit of time. The tip is coming at sometime around 9:12 is what we've been told, unless there's overtime in this one. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, if you haven't done one of these before with us, we actually haven't done one since early January, but we are going to watch along with the game. And we are going to talk about what's going on. The hope is that our TVs will be synced up well enough that you'll be able to follow along with what I'm saying. You are welcome to bring in your own comments. If you are watching on Twitter, if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave comments and those will pop up. And so, for instance, I'm going to pop up Jeff Marlowe's comment here. He says, "Hey, everybody." And so you can write. I'm not going to put every comment up, but I try to pick out the good ones and we talk through things. So we've got about 120 people here already. It's good to see you folks. And obviously we got a lot to talk about, and I'm going to wait until the top of the hour before we get going. And actually, I'm going to bring Zion in here in just a second, as he has graciously decided to join me early on in this. I want to get my stats cast up first. We got a lot to talk about, and we'll go ahead and bring Zion Brown in. Where'd he go? There he is. Zion Brown joining us here on the CrimsonCast Watch Party. It's good to see you again, sir. Saw you earlier today. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, first and foremost. And yeah, like you said, lots to talk about right now.
We've got some time to kill, and obviously we're just waiting for Northwestern to hit the inevitable boo-booey drive that will take this to the first of multiple overtimes. So
you called it today when we talked earlier, and I feel like that's what's about to happen.
I've done this too many times. I know how this works. But anyway, I am not a believer in ignoring the elephant in the room. So let's go ahead and talk about it. The news dropping today from your colleague, Zach Osterman at the Indy Star, and then confirmed by multiple other outlets, that Mike Woodson is going to be back next year. There's been a lot of contentiousness surrounding Woodson, especially over the last 3 weeks. It really feels like things ramped up kind of in early to mid-February. A lot of noise. There's been a lot of rumors and speculation. I guess, first of all, I would be unfair to ask you, having just come on, hey, give me your thoughts about the news. So I'll give my thoughts first and let you kind of follow on that. I think that at this point in Indiana's season, even in year 3, there are arguments for and against perhaps a change being made. The arguments against clearly have won the day with whoever was making the decisions. And a lot of that, I think, comes down to the idea that, well, you have a coach that led a team to the NCAA tournament the first 2 years. They've had a rough year this year. There have been injury issues, most notably, of course, Xavier Johnson being out for a large part of the season. And, with all of that, the idea that maybe that adds a few more wins and you're in the thick of an NCAA tournament chase as opposed to being on the outside looking in for the NIT. And if you've had 2 years of tournament success, you shouldn't lose your job over one bad year. I'm sure that is kind of the general thought process among those who felt like Woodson should stay. And there's a large part of the fan base that felt that way. There were a lot of other people who didn't feel that way and who were concerned, not just about, I think, the season as it went this year, Zion, but the lack of a clear pathway towards a better future. In terms of, you've only got one committed recruit, you're going to have to rely heavily on the portal. And that's assuming nobody else leaves the program. Here's Northwestern shooting a 3. Hey, they missed. Oh, wait. A foul. Wow, somehow they called Northwestern on that foul. That's typical.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, that was some home cooking there for the Spartans who desperately need a win. But certainly some concern about the trajectory of things, and the portal not being a fix-all for everything, and a worry that there's not a clear trajectory perhaps coming in as far as what you might see out of IU moving forward. So with that, I guess your overall thoughts on the news that Mike Woodson is coming back next year.
I think you perfectly described it, Galen. I know you and I have talked about this just in passing a few times now, and just the fact that he did have those 2 really successful seasons, especially last year here at IU. And then there's also the part of it where you say, okay, was last year the best it's going to be in the Mike Woodson era? And we don't know that, but I think the fact that we know a decision was made means that those conversations were had. Yeah. Probably that, there were definitely conversations had. It wasn't something where it was just like, no question, everybody's on board, Mike Woodson staying as a head coach. It was something where conversations were had and different ideas were shared, and they ultimately decided to keep him on. And that was a decision that was made. And I think it will come down to a lot of what happens this season and what in this offseason. I think the administration probably wants a clear, set in stone kind of plan for how he sees the future the next year or two at IU. But they decided to keep him there, and I don't blame them for that choice. When you have the season he had last year, when you get them back to the tournament after the way that the last 6 seasons before they had gone, it's hard to say, okay, you had 1 year where you didn't make the tournament, let's move on. And so Scott Dolson and the administration made the choice to keep him aboard.
Michigan State ended up winning. They hit 2 free throws. Northwestern didn't hit. So, hey, my first prediction has come in wrong already tonight, which is good sign. I will say, and we're not going to talk anymore about the Woodson situation after this, but I felt like we needed to lead off with talking about it for those of you who were questioning in the chat. The one thing that sticks out in this that I find odd is the timing. To announce it without an official statement, like there was no press release, there was no press conference. It was an unnamed athletic department source who basically told Zach Osterman, who's the lead beat reporter for the IU beat, at 7:00 on a Wednesday night, 2 hours before a road game. I don't know, that does have that is a weird vibe to it, Zayed. I mean, normally you're not getting that, and I wonder what triggers the announcement happening right now. I'd be curious what the sequence of events was behind the scenes for that particular timing to take place.
That's a great point. I don't understand why, like I said, it was a couple hours before you play a game, why the announcement came back. That makes me think that maybe sometime here in the next few days, we may be getting some news, maybe about some other coaches that you know what I mean, that maybe could have been linked to the IU job if it was open. I don't know, but yeah, it was really odd. You'd expect that news to maybe drop, maybe after today's game, tomorrow or Friday, or maybe sometime next week before the Big Ten tournament starts, for it to drop 2 hours before the game. It is what it is, but I didn't understand necessarily why, and it just kind of I don't want to say it creates a distraction, because all as a player is that your coach is staying. Right. But it does create just this weird kind of underlying story as the game is going on or right before the game.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, the last thing I'll say on this, and then we'll move on to preview this game, it really sets up a strange sequence tonight and then Sunday, because there's a lot of back and forth online, a lot of people not happy about the news. IU coming into a place that they don't historically play that well in. I mean, they don't play as bad as people think that they play in the Barn, but it's like any other road venue in the Big Ten. And this has not been a team that's fared particularly well on the road so far this season. So there's a lot of pressure now on the team to kind of, and it's not their fault, and no one's telling them this specifically, but they almost had to validate the announcement by going out and winning to then set up a senior day on Sunday against Michigan State. That's also a difficult game against a team that, just beat Northwestern and looks like they're on their way to the NCAA tournament. So it is going to be really interesting watching all of this unfold and seeing not just how the game goes, but how people react to the game in light and in the framing of this news that's just come down a couple hours ago.
Right. And that's a fair point. And this is a fairly quick turnaround. I say this as somebody that went to Maryland and did not go to Minnesota. I'm tired still from being in Maryland, right? And so these players have had a quick turnaround to get back from Maryland to Bloomington, then go right to Minnesota after that game. So I think it will be tough for them to maybe get up and be energized for 40 minutes throughout this one. But just capturing what they had in the second half at College Park on Sunday is going to be a big deal. See if they do the same thing on the road this time in Minneapolis.
Let's take a look at the KenPom breakdown of this game for those of you who are watching. I know the numbers are small. I apologize, folks. Let me see if I can. I'm going to see if I can zoom this in a little bit. There we go. So just to compare these two teams, they both, when Indiana has the ball, they're both not particularly good teams, if you'll notice. Like Indiana 92nd in the country in offensive efficiency, Minnesota 103rd in defensive efficiency. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a lot of scoring. Now, Minnesota does score pretty well. That's the one thing that they've done well so far this season. And Indiana has struggled defensively throughout the course of this season. And one of the concerns, I think, in this game in particular is Minnesota's a pretty good three-point shooting team. They're 56th in the country in three-point shooting. They average 36%. Indiana has struggled to defend the three-point shot. You can see there they are at 34.8% allowed, which is 248th in the country. If Minnesota gets it going from outside, they are very dangerous. We saw that in that game that they played against Penn State last week, where they got behind. It looked like Penn State was going to run away with it, and then Minnesota was able to just drop shots in from all over the place and completely turn the tide of that basketball game. Indiana, for their part, I think if you're looking for success, a lot of it's going to come back to kind of the formula that's won them the last two games. Can they hit enough shots from outside? They shot pretty well from three against Wisconsin and against Maryland. They shot free throws very well against Maryland. That's a huge part of their offense if things are going well. Those are kind of the things that stick out to me. What about you at this point?
What sticks out to me, knowing we've seen these two teams play already and IU won that game, if you look here at this KenPom page, that assist per field goal is made for Minnesota is at 65.6% of their field goals are assisted on. That's the third best in the country. And when they came to Bloomington earlier this year, they had only 9 assists on 23 field goals, I believe was the number. So Indiana really, I remember that game just really feeling like Minnesota was limited to ISO style of basketball that they are not comfortable playing. So if the Hoosiers can somehow replicate that, I think that'll go a long way for them tonight, having a chance to beat Minnesota yet again. Yeah,
I mean, I was at that game, watched the whole thing in the arena. It was an odd game in as much as it felt like, Indiana, they should have been in control. And, at one point, I think they were up 25-8. It looked like they were going to blow Minnesota off the floor. Then they let Minnesota get back in the game. It was a 10-point margin at half. Indiana put another big run on, went up by almost 20, but they never really totally put Minnesota away. And that has been a real concern with this IU team really for the whole season. I mean, if you want to point to one of their big issues, it's just that they cannot just shut down an opponent and keep them there. And Minnesota, if you look at them statistically, I mean, they're technically better than Indiana, just in terms of how they've played overall. Their records are not that different from each other. But Minnesota, they've had some fascinating games lately. Their wins so far on the season in the Big Ten, they've beaten Nebraska at home. They've beaten Northwestern and Michigan State at home. They beat Rutgers and Ohio State at home, and they swept Penn State. So they've been really good at home. In fact, they've only lost one home game in the entire Big Ten season, and that was that game that they played against Iowa all the way back on the 15th. So this is going to be interesting to see, how does Indiana perform in this environment where Minnesota has ended up playing pretty well against a wide variety of competition.
Right, yeah. Minnesota's a very good home team, as you mentioned, and it is a nice environment. I'm looking at the Big Ten pan into it right now. It looks like there's a decent amount of stands. Look like the lower level at the very least it is all the way filled up. So I think the pace is another thing I'm looking for in this game. They won that Maryland game. They came back against Maryland because they sped it up, and Maryland, obviously a much better defense than Minnesota has, but their defense is so great because they play slowly. I know you and I have also talked about this with a lot of defenses, and as soon as Indiana was able to speed that game up, Maryland's defense did not look like Maryland's defense usually looks. So That'll be another thing against Minnesota, another team that plays slow, a slow brand and a slow level of basketball to see if the Hoosiers can get out in transition. Yeah.
So much about this game is, a bit of a style contrast. One of the things about Indiana, as much as Indiana's offense has come under criticism for being too stodgy, they play at a faster tempo, pretty significantly so than Minnesota does. It's a few possessions faster every game. And I am really interested to see who's able to actually dictate the tempo. I think you could make a pretty good argument that, in that first game, Minnesota actually dictated the tempo, but Indiana was happy to go out and play a little bit faster. So this is going to be an interesting set of things, I think, for Indiana to keep an eye on and what they're doing. We're getting ready to tip. For those of you who are ready to go with us, they just tipped the ball, and we are underway here at the barn. Can I just say, starting off here, I'm really pleased that Minnesota went away from that floor that they've had for a few years where it looked like all the blood had been drained out of it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
That awful. That was like, I felt like I was watching an arena like slowly die. Nice start there, though. For early shot by Khalil Ware. That's a good start for him.
It sure is. And you love to see him in the post. It's been a little rocky at times for him in the post this year, but when he's on balance, it's hard to really contest those shots.
He's so talented. And there's almost a throwaway. Minnesota ends up keeping it. Malik Renew matched up. Oh, God. Malik Renew just got abused there. Fortunately, did not have to pay for that as Hawkins missed that layup.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good start for Indiana on both ends there, but
yeah, Renew.
I want to see if they continue in the paint.
Yeah. It's a couple of good shots early on here, one from Ware, one from Renew. And, you always like to see a 4-0 lead to start with. Although after that Maryland game, Zion, I'm not totally sure what to, can I trust any start or finish? We'll turnover there by Maryland. By Minnesota. So many runs. By the way, we are at 1,033 viewers on this live watch party. So good to see you all. Thanks for joining. Let us know if you have any questions. You can always respond directly to what we're doing here. All right. And Mackenzie Mbako misses his first shot. He's had a good run here lately, though, Zion. He's really started to come into his own offensively, it feels like.
He sure has, and they're giving him a lot more ball handling responsibilities. He's been aggressive. I always say that much. He doesn't always work on his drives, but he has attacked.
Nice job there by Ware as he is able to clean that up there against Payne. Let's see what Indiana does. Oh, Trey Galloway gets loose on the baseline.
Yeah. Timeout.
Well, that's a nice start. Indiana coming out here in a good mindset overall. And, I think one of the things we are always curious about with Indiana is, what does the ball movement look like? You can see, first of all, this defensive play they're replaying from Ware. I mean, he has gotten so good at not fouling while also blocking shots. And then this is really good vision by Malik Renew, who hasn't been quite as incisive with his passing lately. I feel like they've kind of moved the playmaking to Galloway a bit more, but nice to see him kind of go back into what he was doing earlier in the season.
Yeah, what I've noticed with Malik Renew on plays like that, or he is facing the rim and kind of seeing the whole court, he can make reads like that. It's as soon as he turns his back to that basket where it's basically, in his mind, the ball is just going up. And so when he can do that and just sit there and face up and see Trey Galloway cutting right under the rim, he's a much better player.
Patrick noting that the starters have been pretty strong recently, and then it's when the subs come in that things tend to fall off. That's really, it's true, but it's been the case most of the year. And it's, even with the bench getting shorter, we've seen that trend taking place with Indiana. Minnesota looks lost right now offensively. It's pretty good aggressive defense by Indiana so far. Very, very much further out than they are normally.
They sure are. They're trusting those bigs to really hedge and get back.
But see, so that was an offensive rebound by Dawson Garcia off of a not great rebound attempt by Renew, and he picks up a foul there. This is a concern. I mean, Indiana's got better traditional bigs, but Minnesota's got some pretty mobile people in the post. So I am a little bit concerned if Indiana isn't doing what they need to do down low. We'll see what happens on this play. Another turnover. Nice job by Ware. Nice feed by Cal. Well, I don't know about that, but that's excellent. All right. 8-0, Zion. That's exactly how we thought it was going to go, right?
Yeah. Every time I see Khalil Ware by himself on a fast break, I can't help but think about the end of that Ohio State game.
Right. We're just not going to think about that at all. All right. Still very aggressive. And, okay. Great. Okay. So And Baco tries to go over a screen, gets bumped, can't get across, and commits a foul on a made three-pointer. That's not ideal.
Not at all. Cam Christian, by the way, has been one of my favorite players to watch in the Big Ten this year.
Yeah, I got to say, Minnesota has a lot of enjoyable individual pieces to watch. I've enjoyed a lot of their players. I don't necessarily like watching them play together, but I like watching them individually play.
Yeah.
He little 4-point play there, cuts the lead in half as it would be. That's a shame after such a good start for Indiana that happened. All right, let's see how the Hoosiers handle their first bit of adversity in this one. 1,170 people joining us. We are really thrilled to have all you folks here on the CrimsonCast Watch Party. That shot, wow, that was rough.
Not close.
Minnesota, Indiana still really extending quite a bit here. Missed shot, and
you gotta grab that.
Yeah, that's a rebound. That has to be a rebound there. So that's going to go underneath. So Indiana 67% shooting so far, and Minnesota 20% shooting. Let's keep that ratio up. I like how that sounds.
Hey, that's what happened in the last game. Minnesota was 3 of 20 on their threes in that one.
Yep. And Minnesota with some interesting. Yeah, this is really interesting action. Indiana, 2 on 3 and gets that to go.
That's a bad pass.
You're a little ahead of me.
Yeah. Ooh.
But I will confirm that is a bad pass by Galloway. What are you doing? That's like a quarterback throwing across his body. Okay, nice block by Mbako.
This is ridiculous.
Kept in. What the heck was that? It's like watching the Globetrotters, like 60 frames per second. Man.
And now all of a sudden it feels like it's been a minute since IU last scored.
This always seems to be this way. Indiana just scores in these chunks, and then it goes away, and then Galloway, nice. Wow, Trey Galloway, nice reception there. Who was that from? That was from Ware.
That's Ware, yeah.
Man.
This is right to the rim.
Sprightly start to this game, to say the least. A lot going on. And shockingly, Indiana scoring a lot of points in the paint. 8 points in the paint so far. Minnesota a little inside out. Nobody rotates out. There you go. Mitchell with the first 3 for him, and the 1-point game.
Yeah. It feels like IU's played so much better than Minnesota, and the scoreboard does not show it.
Yeah. Tell me as you're watching this, like what is Indiana's initial plan here? What are they trying to break down on Minnesota defensively? It's a weird pass by Galloway. Nice job there, though.
Yeah, it's been a lot of handoffs and pick and rolls trying to get Galloway downhill. You've seen Minnesota kind of trap a lot, or not trap, but hard hedge a lot of those screens so far, and he's just been able to get the passes out, and they swung the ball around well despite a couple of the turnovers they had. It
was a really nice move by Payne there. That really he did the one thing Ware couldn't really answer, which was spin the opposite direction and then lay it up. Ware taking a 3. He missed, of course.
But I like it. I don't understand. He has not shot nearly enough 3-pointers this season.
Okay, how many? I would love if somebody could go back and count up all of all the points Indiana's given up in transition layups over the course of the season. There was another one there by Mitchell, and then Cups as it knocked off his foot. Well, I think if we had asked each other when Indiana was up 8-0 after the first 2 minutes, would they be trailing by a point at the under 16? But that's the way the cookie crumbles. Not a lot of defense from either team so far in this game, really. Some good early possessions by Indiana. Indiana with 6 assists on 6 made field goals. You like to see that. But Minnesota with 3 offensive rebounds. And that has been, to some degree, the difference. So, all right, 13-12. Minnesota's hit 3 of their last 3. Your thoughts on that initial spurt?
Definitely disappointing for Indiana the way that unraveled. Like you said, they should not be after an 8-0 start. You should never trail at the under 16 timeout. I will say you mentioned the IU assist, all 6 field goals, 3 of those already from Trey Galloway, who just continues to get better and better in that pseudo point guard role.
Yeah, the swing, I will say, the offense has started to work better with that, and I think it always needed to be that way. I am curious to see what happens when Xavier Johnson comes off the bench, which that's certain to be the first substitution, and maybe that turnover from Cups will even maybe cause it to happen a little bit faster. This is the kind of game that I think he can certainly help in if Indiana's plan is to continue to try to get into the post and take advantage of some mismatches there. So it'll be interesting there because I feel like Galloway feels very comfortable as the distributor. He also feels comfortable as the guy on the end of the pass, but that feels like it's less likely to happen with Xavier Johnson in because a lot of Galloway, like the 2 we saw earlier, Galloway gets an assist on a basket from Renew and he gets another assist on a basket from Ware. It feels like that kind of goes away when Xavier Johnson comes in.
Yeah, when X comes in, I definitely feel like it changes and sometimes for the better. I mean, in the Maryland game, it was for the better. They played off each other well. Felt like X kind of spearheaded the start of the run, and then as the game got closer, got a little more into the half court. Then it was Trey Galloway running the show. I feel like the last 5 minutes was just all Trey Galloway pick and rolls in that game. So, they're still working the kinks out. Obviously, they expected to play together much more this year than they have.
Yeah, Minnesota fans playing to type there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this. I don't know how the Northwestern Michigan State game changed it, but coming into this game, Indiana had a possible seeding range in the Big Ten tournament as high as 5 and as low as 13, which you famously earlier today made the comment that you hate charts that show those types of things, which I totally understand. But it's wild, and it just kind of, I think we're constantly gonna have this in an era where you've got this many teams in a conference. Like so much is unsettled until the very end of the conference season.
Yeah, it's only going to get worse, as you said, in future years. Mackenzie and Baco just fell asleep, and Minnesota did not realize it.
Man, he still doesn't know he's supposed to be guarding at this point. And there's a foul. Who'd they nail that on? Foul on Renew. That is Malik Renew's
first, I believe.
Is that only his first? I thought they nailed him earlier on that call.
I think the other one was on Ware.
Okay, thank goodness.
Yeah, he is 8 straight games now where Malik Renew has had 4 or 5 fouls. So
what do you think happened? He had such a nice streak earlier this season where he wasn't fouling, and then all of a sudden he is.
I'm really not sure what changed. I don't feel like they've asked him to do much different, as he just picked up another.
I feel to blame for this somehow. So right now, okay, it looks like Renew's going to come off. He kind of has, as much as I hate the auto bench, I don't know that you can keep him on the floor.
He's the only person where I think you have to do it. Right?
Yeah.
We've had 2 years of evidence now that he just cannot be trusted to stay out there in foul trouble. Unfortunately, man,
that's not ideal. So you got Anthony Walker in the game now. This is the kind of lineup I think people would like Indiana to play, although it's lacking outside shooting in a couple of areas.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at some point in this half to see that lineup we saw basically close the other day against Maryland, where it was like Leal out there, and then Mbako kind of slides down to the 4.
Fox with the layup. Minnesota on a 6-0 run, and stop me if you've heard this before, Zai. Indiana on a 2.5 minute scoring drought right now. Walker,
feels like there's at least one of those every game.
Can't finish through contact there. And that's going to be a turnover to Minnesota. Well, it was 8-0 at one point. So Minnesota on a 15-4 run at this stage. Is my math correct?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
You've taken finite more recently than I have, so I'm going to rely on you for all of my calculations on this. So let's see. Indiana continuing. I really do. It is kind of noticeable that they do feel like they've extended the defense just a little bit. It's not really doing a whole lot at this point.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a factor of just Illinois or Minnesota. I don't know why I said Illinois. Minnesota just being able to hit pull-up threes at a higher rate than most teams, and IU might be a little worried about that.
Can't buy a bucket there. That was an unlucky roll-off of that layup there. Okay, that was a terrible pass. Dawson Garcia missing that layup. And what? Wow. Xavier Johnson, an ill-advised pass. And travel? Yeah. So it's a lot of turnovers suddenly popping up here. 4 turnovers for each team, and we have just hit the under 12. Thanks for joining us, folks. Good to have you here. 15-12, Minnesota leading Indiana. We appreciate you joining the CrimsonCast Watch Party. A lot going on. We'll talk about that in a second, but just a reminder, we are sponsored by Home Field Apparel, your place to go for the finest in college fashions, the softest fabrics, the coolest designs. Zion, have you seen the shooting shirts that they've been releasing? The Indiana State and Michigan State one earlier. They're the Phi Slamma Jamma shooting shirt. They had a Tennessee Vols women's shooting shirt. I love that Indiana State one. I was talking it's like to a bunch of people about this, and I'm like, I'd love to buy that. I have no earthly idea where I would wear that. Like, could I wear that in the classroom? Is that allowed? Am I only wearing it on the podcast? I'm not sure, but I want one.
I mean, I think if I saw you walking around Franklin Hall in that, I wouldn't question it.
You might not, but there'd be other people that would. Anyway, folks, if you haven't been, go to homefieldapparel.com, use the code HOME23, HOME23, get 15% off your first order. Create an account, get on the mailing list. You'll get updates whenever anything's dropping, and you accrue points when you order from Home Field, and those do add up. I've gotten some goodies just based upon that. All right, so Zion, so far 6 for 12 Indiana from the field. That's not bad. 4 points off of turnovers, also not bad. Being out rebounded 11-7, that's not good. What else sticks out to you so far in this game?
One team has attempted 5 threes and the other team has attempted 1. You mentioned 6 of 12 isn't bad, but as you know, you're just not maximizing any sort of efficiency when only one of those 12 shots is a 3-point look. And once again, I think they've gotten out in transition and turned it over when they have, but that was the way that Mbako really got going from 3 the other day against Maryland was out in the fast break when he was just flaring straight to the corner. So I think Indiana needs more of that. Because they're not going to generate a lot of threes in the half court. So they have to try to get out in transition and find Mbako or Leo when he's in the game for those shots.
Yeah, there's still a lot of time, and obviously we saw how much the game shifted when Indiana was playing against Maryland. Well, it's hard to you can't necessarily take stock in the first 10 minutes and say that's how the rest of the game is going to go. That said, Indiana over the last 4 games has shot, let's go to the last 5 games, 18, 21, 15, 14, and 16 3-pointers. And they're not on pace to do that right now. And you would like to see that number go up because, as you said, Minnesota's they're gonna shoot threes. And we talked about this at the top of the broadcast. They do a good job shooting threes. Over their last 5 games, they've shot 16, 19, 23, 20, and 20 3-pointers. So I just think Indiana should probably think about shooting some more 3-pointers and making that a regular part of their offense, because I don't like the way that this is shaping up pace-wise in terms of how the offenses are flowing with each other.
And IU hasn't even gotten to the free throw line yet, which is usually what they do best, getting there.
Well, there, as was pointed out, I think by Patrick earlier, and Patrick Thomas pointing this out too, Minnesota allowed to play tackle. They haven't really called a whole lot, although they just called something on Minnesota's there. So there, see, we showed them. But that foul on Mitchell, and that is, I think, only the first foul on Minnesota. So there you go.
That's what the scoreboard says, yeah. Once again, Minnesota just trapping Galloway. They do not want him or Xavier Johnson really to get downhill.
Indiana trying to work this. I don't know what Anthony Walker was doing. Got in the position for a layup, though. That's nice. Okay. Walker sometimes will run up and try to set a screen, but he brings his man with him, which kind of defeats the purpose a lot of times, especially when the ball handler is stationary. I've noticed that a couple of times with him now.
Right. It just kind of ends the whole play right there when you do that at times.
And neither of these teams handles the basketball well at all. Wow. Okay. Jeez.
Oh my goodness.
What on earth is going on? Okay, that was blocked. Xavier Johnson knocked a guy down.
Oh, it gets funnier.
I know. I'm sorry. It makes me sad you're this far ahead of me. And then we get the it could have been worse in that it could have been a slam as opposed to just a layup alley-oop. What God? This is if anybody's this is like Hyper Court 7.
Thank you. I was just about to say that.
This is not what I would call organized basketball in any traditional sense. Fun. It's certainly enjoyable to watch, but I don't know if I would call this organized basketball right now.
One thing I can definitely tell is that Minnesota watched the second half of that Maryland game, and they are on alert about those outlet passes in transition. Their hands are up every single time, and they've gotten all those deflections because of it.
Fox with the lay-in there. And so this is where, Zion, this is where I struggle with Trey Galloway because he just threw the ball away again. That is his fourth turnover, and there's only 10.5 minutes gone. Trey Galloway has 4 of the 7 turnovers that Indiana's got so far in this game. And it kind of feels like there are games where Trey Galloway's totally locked in. We've seen a couple of them where he has like 10 plus assist games. And then there's games when he's not locked in and he plays kind of like Luke Skywalker at the end of Empire Strikes Back, like where he can't control his powers and there's like pieces of the Death Star flying all over the place. I guess it wasn't the Death Star in Empire, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like there's just games where he can't control himself and he doesn't seem to know when he doesn't have it. And that is a real concern because he's oftentimes the only guy who's trying to actively make plays.
Yeah, he just goes on stretches where it's just like bad play after bad play. I can't remember which game, maybe the Penn State game at home, when I screenshotted something and posted it on Twitter. It was Trey Galloway, the stat broadcast, and it said, turnover, bad pass, turnover, bad pass, turnover, bad pass, like 3 plays in a row. And you're just like, okay, after a while, like, give the ball up almost. It's like you're not going to be the one making the play here on this possession.
I'd like to thank everybody. We are at 1,804 viewers right now on the live stream. Great to see you all. Welcome to the CrimsonCast Watch Party. We got to do this more often if we're going to have this many people watching. If you'd like to comment, whatever, the comments are flying by like crazy. I can barely keep up with them. But Indiana down 19-16, and we got Christie at the line, and he missed the first one, so that's nice. The barn is not full. Look at that, Zion. I don't know if you saw the shot from the upper deck. Not a whole lot of people up there today.
It's kind of interesting to me. Is this their senior day, or do they play again here?
That's a good question. I believe I got it here. This is their senior day. Yes. So this is it.
Wow. By the way, now Khalil Ware has 2 fouls after that last one on Christie.
Yeah, I don't like the way this is trending. That was nice by Ware. I like that. It's still aggressive even with 2 fouls. He's got 8 of Indiana's 18 points, Khalil Ware.
Definitely a refreshing start after the way he played in the first half and really the first 25 minutes on Sunday. 9
assists on 9 made field goals. But as you pointed out earlier, they're all 2s at this point, which is a little bit of an issue.
And still no free throws.
Yeah. And 2 more free throws coming from Minnesota here as Fox got bumped by Walker. We have a comment here from Michael. What's troubling is that X and Galloway are highly experienced players that should not be making so many dumb passes. So I think it's 2 different things, Michael. I appreciate the comment. I think, A, the problem with X is I think he sees things that aren't there and tries to force balls. Galloway, I think, sometimes does stuff on hope as opposed to actual, like, this is a pass that I should make. And sometimes it works, and it's fabulous. Yes, I agree with the idea that perhaps with the amount of experience both has, they shouldn't be doing that. But I also wonder if that's the system to some degree, because it feels like this offensive system almost forces whoever is distributing the ball to have to make some risky passes because the angles aren't always there.
Right. And it's just a lot of pick and roll play, as there's another one of those turnovers.
God. And did they call a goaltend there, or what did they?
I think so. I think that ball hit the backboard first.
Yeah. All right. Under 8, 23-18, Minnesota leading. This is Zion. I don't think this is trending well for Indiana for a couple of reasons. I'm looking at the replay here. You're probably ahead of me. Yeah, that was close, but I think they're going to call that a goaltend on Xavier Johnson. So a couple of things. Indiana's already got 6 fouls. They've already committed 8 turnovers. They've yet to make a 3-pointer, and they've only attempted 1. Neither guard looks to be completely in control of themselves. Both big men have 2 fouls, and one of them is sitting on the bench. Can you tell me where the optimism should be coming from right now for Indiana?
Well, when you tell me all that combined, that's when I think this has to be a stretch, at least a stretch, maybe not the whole rest of the game. This has to be a stretch where Mackenzie Mbako steps up. He's on the bench right now.
Yeah.
I would expect them to bring him in here at the under 8 and maybe run a pin down for him, get something to get him flowing in this game, because at least for the rest of the second half, they're probably going to need him to get 2 or 3 more buckets to keep them, the head above water.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. I mean, the nice thing is it's not out of hand by any stretch of the imagination. It's still, they're only down 5, and there's plenty of time left in the game. We saw in that Maryland game, but man, they're going to need to figure out something different offensively here, because yes, they've had 9 made baskets and 9 assists, but they've also had 8 turnovers, which that's not a ratio. You can't have 1 assist for every 1 made field goal. 1 turnover for 1 made field goal. That's not going to work over the course of the whole game. Couple of comments here from Dale Ficklin. The optimism is we're only down 5. I don't disagree with that at all. We can't go 40 minutes well. That's also true. And that is probably the thing that I'm the most optimistic about with both of these teams, is they are susceptible to some really bad stretches, but can also play really good stretches. I want to call something up and share it with everybody. This is my favorite game chart, I think, that I've seen all season. Let me get this going real quick here. This is the win probability graph from that Minnesota Penn State game. I want to note this. In the first half, Penn State went on a 23-4 run, followed by an 11-1 run, and we're leading 41-20 or 41-18 at the 5-minute mark of the first half. Then allowed Penn State to go on a 17-3 run and a 10-0 run, or Minnesota did, which ended up giving them the victory by 5. One of the more insane games I think we've seen all season, just in terms of how the whole thing worked out. So both of these teams are capable of stretches of good play and stretches of terrible play. A lot of it's going to be, to some degree, what AZ Hoosier 37 says here. Who figures it out? Like, which team can put or maybe the better way of putting it, Zion, which team can have the least bad stretches throughout the course of this contest?
Right. And that's what we've seen in so many IU games this year, is that whichever team does that wins. And too many times IU's been on the wrong end of it, but against this Maryland team, or against this Minnesota team that you just pulled up and showed how much they've struggled, anything's a possibility. Some
nice ball movement here from Indiana. They get a nice hook shot by Khalil Ware. Ware's got 10 of Indiana's 20. I really shudder to think where Indiana is right now if Khalil Ware hasn't, played as well as he's played in this game, and even with the 2 fouls, he's been just huge on both ends.
Yeah, and a side note, very random. If Mike Woodson as a child, as a youth, would have maybe picked up football, I think he'd be a tremendous football coach, because his after timeout plays, no, this sounds nuts, but his after timeout plays are always great, and that's what you get in football. You get a long break between every single play.
It's true. I mean, he's perhaps an offensive coordinator at heart. Maybe he's like Chip Kelly, and he's going to end up coaching some quarterbacks at some point in the future. All right, Minnesota. That was an odd play where the ball got knocked on the underside of the basket. Mbako back in the game, as you requested. That was a wild-ass layup attempt there by Hawkins. I'm not sure what he was thinking there. And he commits a foul on the other end. That is when you know you've arrived as a player. You throw up a ridiculous layup on one end and then run down the floor to foul the opposition. Only the second personal foul on Minnesota so far in this one. Nice little.
Finally, for the first time, you get into the free throw line.
I know. Nice stretch from Indiana in terms of they've made 4 of their last 5 field goals, and that's good. Another assist on another made basket for Indiana on that Ware basket. But Walker knocks down the free throw. And let's see what happens. I'm not sure. There must be something going on. Maybe Stephen Bardo really likes these people in the costumes. I'm not sure why they're in costumes. Maybe somebody in the chat can explain what's going on the TV that they keep showing the costumes. But anyway, Walker hit both of those free throws, which is that's nice. He's got 4 points now, which that's as many as he's scored since the Purdue game when he had 6.
That's true.
Well, he had 4 in the Penn State game. He hasn't scored any more than 4. Right. So it's nice to see him contributing a little bit. He didn't even play in that Nebraska game, if you'll remember.
Yep, I do. All of a sudden, his minutes just went away after December and early January. He played so well, and then it just dwindled down.
No, his Walker's minutes since the start of February, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 17, 8, didn't play, 16, 16, and 6. It's all over the place. So apparently, I've been told it's the barn. The student section apparently always dresses up like animals. Well, that's good. Hey, Indiana's got the lead again. Nice drive by Mbako. And this is kind of what we were talking about earlier. Like these are two teams for whom it's a game of runs. That's how they live, man. That's just what they do. Hawkins, I hope Hawkins keeps shooting. He is 0 for 4 on the game with 15 minutes played.
And yeah, it's been about 2.5 minutes now since Minnesota last scored.
Our guy Mitchell's got 7. Wow, that was a really bad shot. Jeez. Okay. Indiana running a little bit. I like this. I mean, Minnesota's defense just isn't that good. I really feel like Indiana should be trying to press the tempo just a little bit more, especially when they're only playing with one big.
Yeah, I agree with that. As that last possession, Mackenzie Mbako felt like he was in the way the entire possession, and he still ends up scoring.
Well, this is a nice stretch of play for Indiana. 8-0 run, and Minnesota has gone about 3.5 minutes without scoring. It'll drop down to Garcia. Nice steal by Galloway. There we go. Ware again. Yeah, we had another bucket for Ware. And
did they give him a foul too?
They did. Garcia picks up his first foul. Well, 10-0 run for Indiana. That's our first 10-0 run of the game, I believe. So that's positive news on either side. Nice smooth touch by Ware on that layup. That's really nice to see. So Ware, 6 for 9 from the field. He has the only 3-point attempt for Indiana so far. 12 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, a block, and a steal. That's a pretty good line for 15 minutes played.
Yeah, and once again, a great bounce back from the way. I know he still ended up with 14 rebounds, but offensively, his start in that Maryland game was disastrous. He turned it over every time he touched it, it felt like, for the first 25 minutes of that game.
Well, and it's interesting because he also did not have a great game offensively against, what was it? There was another one recently where he was just kind of off with everything. Maybe it was the Nebraska game. And he really struggled from the free throw line in that one more than anything else. But yeah, that Maryland game, I mean, the great thing about the game he played there was, despite the shooting issues, the rebounding was what really kept Indiana in the game when they needed to be kept in the game. And he has really shown a fearlessness on the boards that's been nice to see. So we got Peyton Sparks getting ready to come in, I guess, for Ware, which he won't now because there was a missed free throw there. Walker tumbled to the ground. I've seen a couple Indiana guys take spills tonight.
And you mentioned the Sparks thing. And now I wonder if he actually will come in, because I feel like that was probably a provision just to get to the under 4.
Yeah.
Keep Ware out of foul trouble. But now that it'll go past the under 4, I'm curious to see if they still bring him in or just send him back to the bench at this timeout.
Ware with his 8th rebound. Minnesota 2 for 10 from 3 now.
They've missed their last 5 because they were 2 for 5 at first.
I wish Mbako would just pull the trigger on that. That's blocked out of bounds. So that'll be the under 4. So we'll keep it here. We're not going anywhere. Zion Brown from WIUX and Indy Star joining us here. I'm Galen Clavio. You know who I am. Some comments coming in. We've got let's see. Which of these can I actually put on camera is the big question mark. maybe we'll skip some of these. Anyway, no, all you folks are lovely. Love to see you. A reminder to everybody, we've got here we go. Great question from Patrick. Favorite Big Ten arena to visit, favorite Big Ten town to visit. I'm going to let you take this one first, Zion. What are your favorites?
So Sunday was my first time in the Xfinity Center. I enjoyed it. As a media member, Qdoba catering for our meal there. 10 out of 10 for me. I love Qdoba. And it's just a nice arena to be in. Obviously, the environment there isn't always great. It wasn't on Sunday, but I liked it there. And Purdue, Mackey. It's a little crowded for media at Mackey.
Yeah.
But outside of that, just being in that environment, the media setup is still pretty good unless you're sitting behind the broadcast cameras, which sometimes it can be a pain. Just you can't see past them. So those are the two that come to mind off the top of my head as far as arenas. No,
that's fair. Arena wise, God, it's been a little while. I would say, the Breslin Center is a favorite of mine to visit. I've always enjoyed that one. That would probably, especially when they're really good, that's probably one at the top of the list. Towns, I think this is tough because it's kind of, to me, like there's like 3 different categories of Big Ten locations for teams. There's big cities, which don't count. I don't like going
Madison.
Madison's kind of in its own special case because it's a wonderful place to go. It's a wonderful vibe, but it's almost too big to count. But I do enjoy it. Lincoln is actually very similar in a lot of ways. Columbus is probably the same. I had a great time the one time I went to Ann Arbor is always a good visit. The arena is not good, but Ann Arbor itself is, I think, a really good visit. I will say my least favorite arena, almost without question, just in terms of I hate the lighting in it more than anything else, and the kind of brutalist architecture is State Farm Arena, and just generally having to go to Champaign is not a vacation. You're going for work, and that's about it.
I have to co-sign that statement. It's just an odd place. I don't know how to describe it other than it's odd.
I've yet to go to the Rack. I've heard I need to go to the Rack. It'll happen at some point, but it's
never
not
been
yet.
out there.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's tough for a student. It's tough to get out to the Rack. Anyway, we're back. We're back here. 28-23 missed layup by Leal after a missed jumper by Mbako. And Minnesota is kind of at a point now they haven't scored in 4.5 minutes. And they won't score on that possession either. Another turnover. Our guy Hawkins is having a heck of a game. 0 for 5 with 2 turnovers and a foul in 17 minutes. Not really contributing. Dawson Garcia also has not scored in this game so far.
It's been a mix of confusing offense and some pretty good defense, I'd say, too, by IU.
Sparks is in the game, so you were wrong. They did end up bringing him in. We'll see. Bold strategy. We'll see how it plays out for the missed layup there by Walker. Yeah, Minnesota. It's interesting when their shots are falling, they look pretty good, but they don't really have a plan on offense.
Right, like you said, they have some fun players, but it doesn't always seem to work together.
No. I love when you laugh because I haven't seen it yet. Yeah, Peyton Sparks, man.
I'm really shocked there wasn't a whistle there too.
Sparks just getting abused down there. That's not going to get it done. Well, that breaks the scoring drought. There's a risky gambit by Mike Woodson. I mean, this has been a problem for Indiana going to the bench, and I know you got to give Ware some kind of a breather, but man, I don't know if this is the right move.
Man, and offensively right now, it looks disgusting.
Oh, God. I'm okay with hitting the bottom of the rim. I'm not okay with hitting the bottom of the backboard. That's fair, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree with that statement.
Mitchell, Minnesota 2 for 11 now from 3. Galloway, hey, floater by Galloway. He's got 6. Good for Trey. Get back on the scoring column there. Always want to have the points higher than the turnovers. That's my goal for every game.
And getting down in transition, that was big for him there.
Yeah, 12-2 run for Indiana right now.
Man, they are defending.
No, the defense, that has been the one thing. I feel like in the Wisconsin game, half of the Maryland game, and I'd say, 60% of this game so far, their defense has really been intense, which is great to see.
Yeah, I mean, that last possession was really nice. They've really had a few here. Even without Ware in the game, who obviously is the best defender on the team, they've held it together on that end of the ball.
Yeah. So let's do a little reset statistically. Indiana shooting 14 for 28. They've attempted 1 3-pointer, which they missed. But they are doing better than Minnesota, who's 10 for 27, 37%, and 2 for 11 from 3. Indiana's actually swung back into the lead, and this is a big thing, Zion. They've swung back into the lead in rebounding on both ends of things. So 17 total rebounds for Indiana, 15 for Minnesota, 4 offensive rebounds now for both teams. This is key. I've talked about this a lot on the podcast this season. It just feels like when Indiana plays with intensity, it comes through on defense and it comes through in rebounding, and those tend to be the intangibles that have cost them in a lot of the games that they've lost. And it's really encouraging coming back from that streak, that deficit Indiana had accrued. That seems to be where they've really doubled down on their intensity, even if their offense hasn't necessarily lived up to it.
Yeah, that's a good point. They do have the size. So when it comes together well, but that size doesn't always rebound as well as it should collectively, and they don't always defend as well as you would expect either. I like getting Xavier Johnson back in the game for this stretch, this last 70 seconds.
As long as I feel like he's almost better in half-court sets where he's not speeding up. That was a dumb foul by Payne. Wow. I mean, they won't put it in the free throw line, but it's going to reset the shot clock.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what he's doing there. I don't know what guys expect when they spread their chest out and step forward and hit a guy. It's like, yes, they're going to call that a foul. That's not just incidental contact, sir.
I love the score bug, the graphic, a 12-2 run over almost 7 minutes.
I mean, it's the Big Ten, baby. What do you want? All right. Indiana wasting more time. Where are you going, McKenzie? Didn't get the shot off.
They gave it to him
Mitchell,
as far as getting it off.
Wow, Sparks missed the outlet option there for Galloway on that last play. That's a shame. All right, what can Indiana do here? That was really good defense by Hawkins. He bumped. He did not allow Johnson to have a pathway into the lane. He made him go essentially parallel to the paint and didn't get a good shot up. Well, 30-25. I mean, honestly, if you'd asked at the beginning and you're like, well, Indiana's going to be up 5 after being up 8-0 to start the game, you would have been like, eh. But then you ask at the 12-minute mark, you say Indiana's going to be up 5. You're like, all right, I'll take that. That's fine. What sticks out to you in this first half, Zion?
Like I mentioned a couple possessions ago, just the way Indiana has defended. Minnesota is just not comfortable at all in this game right now. Very similar. Now, they do have more assists. They already have 7 assists, but as far as just the way they're not comfortable and they're not getting their easy shots as they usually do, very similar to the first time these two teams played back in January.
We have a couple of questions. Michael wanted to know, is the bad Gopher shooting caused by the IU defense or the ineptness of the Gopher shooters? You want to take that one?
Sure. I think they've gotten a few open looks, but a lot of these looks have been deep and off the dribble. And that's credit to IU. Galen, you mentioned it 2 or 3 minutes into the game, just how high they were playing, how much they were pressuring the ball up top. I think that really made Minnesota a little uncomfortable, and it's continued even when they've gotten open looks. Yeah.
I mean, it's a little bit of everything, and one of the things you got to keep in mind with this Minnesota team over the course of their season is they're not terribly consistent in a lot of ways, and I find them to be kind of a fascinating team to watch because they've had some good games. They've had a cluster of pretty good games here lately, but they'll also just throw a stinker up every once in a while where their offense isn't working. The Penn State game was actually one of those. The Nebraska game they played on the road was one of those, but then they had a stretch of games where their offense was just off the charts. Even in that Illinois loss, they scored
97, yeah.
Yeah, they scored 97. Their adjusted offensive efficiency in that game was 155, which that's great. Anyway, let's a couple other things to talk about. If we look at those first half stats for Indiana, Khalil Ware, the star of the game so far for the Hoosiers, 12 points on 6 of 9 shooting, 8 rebounds, a block, a steal, 2 assists, and you look the rest of the roster. I mean, Mackenzie Mbako's 6 points on 3 for 8 shooting. Trey Galloway's 6 points on 3 for 4 shooting. Anthony Walker's chipped in a little bit, and then Malik Renew with 2 points, and that's it. Indiana started, and I think to me, Zion, as I look at all this, like the biggest difference is that Indiana was so bad at basketball control for about the first 10 minutes of the game. And then they stopped turning the ball over. I don't think they had a turnover in the last 9 minutes of the half. And that really made all the difference in terms of their ability to play coherent offense. So, I mean, what else stuck out to you?
That's a great point. Because of how well IU defended, as long as they got shots up, they were going to, be able to take the lead and separate a little bit with this 5-point lead. So that certainly is what stood out. I just really curious him to see how Malik Renew plays in the second half, coming back in the game, if he can refrain from picking up that third foul in the first 5 or 6 minutes of the half, because I ultimately think he is the leading scorer of this team this season. At some point, they're going to need him to just get them a few buckets on the road against a decent team.
Jeff Marlowe with quite a stat. IU at 0.857 points per possession in this one, and Minnesota at 0.714. And there's been 55 points scored in this game. This isn't like Virginia playing somebody where there's only 16 points and a half. So anyway, Zion, any final thoughts? You've been more than generous with your time. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to say before we let you go?
I don't think much. Like I said, I want to see how Renew does in the second half. And if Indiana continues to take care of the ball, as you mentioned, like they did in that last 10 minutes, I think they'll have a good chance to get out here with the win.
I think you're right. I as much as I didn't like the way it was trending in the first 10 minutes, I like the way it's trending now. We'll see what happens. Zion Brown, you can catch him on Twitter. You can catch him on WIOX Radio. Are you doing the Michigan State game by chance?
Yes. So that game will not be on 99.1 because potentially IU's women's team could be playing at the same time on Sunday. But that game will be on our roadcaster on the Mixler, iusportsmedia.mixlr.com. So me and William McDermott on Sunday, senior day, should be a blast.
Awesome. Well, tune in to Zion and Will on B-side. You can go to WIX.org. You can find the link very easily. And you can also check Zion out as he covers IU athletics across the board, including IU basketball on the Indy Star. Zion, wonderful time with you here. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Zion Brown joining us on the show. And thanks to all you folks for tuning in as well, as we have 2,354 people on the live stream right now. And we're going to bring in Mason Williams with the home field little 5 shirt going. Love it. That's great.
I had to help.
Mason Williams from the Hoosier and from the Hoosier Network, which are 2 different things, and a bunch of other things. If you haven't caught his baseball, you just did baseball. You were out at the baseball stadium tonight covering IU. What happened in that one? Tell the people.
Indiana won that game 11-5. Bats got back on track a little bit. Indiana's pitching kind of calmed down from a wonky weekend this past weekend in Frisco. Just flew back from Frisco earlier this week. So yeah, it's busy season. There's stuff going on with football, basketball, baseball. It's always busy season at IU, but for sure right now, in the month of March, there's a lot going on for sure.
Patrick asking, since I'm not allowed to have a halftime break, I have to talk through this entire game. When are we getting more IU football pod action? We are going to have more pod action. We just had a podcast this weekend. Taylor Lehman from Bite Sized Bison, which is back, by the way, which is big ups to Taylor, and a very positive thing for the entire IU football community. But we had a podcast this weekend, talking some IU football. Great feature in the Indy Star today by Zach Osterman, with his sit down with Kurt Signetti. You've got one coming out soon as well.
Yes.
And we're going to talk football as spring practice is coming up pretty fast. What is it? 2 weeks that spring practice starts? Thursday
after spring break. So 2 weeks from tomorrow. Yeah.
That's nuts. In a good way, I guess. It's one of those things where we are, we're into, it's funny. I mean, just the optimism around the football program is at levels I've never seen it. And, I mean, a little bit in the Tom Allen era, yes, but it was a different kind of energy. The Tom Allen thing was built on, we went to the Gator Bowl, and hey, we were ranked in the top 20, not, hey, we're coming off a season where the team went 3-9 and we just replaced our entire coaching staff and 40% of the roster. Yet that's the level of excitement that Indiana's got going into this football season. What's your read on the vibe?
I definitely sense a ton of buzz around the football program. I've not been around it as long as you have, but growing up, my dad and we had football season tickets ever since I was like 6 years old. And I think one of my first core memories of IU football is the 1-11 season that Kevin Wilson had. And I just remember a lot of good memories coming from those wins that would seemingly come out of nowhere, and a lot of bad memories of the results that were more often. But when it comes to like an overall sense of optimism and excitement for a season, especially at this point in the year, and granted, a part of it is because of basketball not being up to standard is a fair way to say it. Not being up to standard for basketball, and certainly with a lot of stuff going on with football, there's definitely a lot of optimism around it. So I can't recall a time where there's been more energy, optimism, more of a desire to see football in Bloomington, especially during this time of year.
Spring game Thursday before a little 5 weekend, which apropos with the shirt you're wearing. Could be quite a weekend that people should just come, get an Airbnb, like stay for 4 or 5 days, just soak it all in. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Maybe they should come early for the eclipse too. Just rent out a house for the month of April.
Yeah, rent it for the whole month. I mean, I will, if you do that and you let me know, I will come over and grill for you at least once while you're here. I will do that. I'm not going to guarantee what. It might be hot dogs, but I will come over and grill for you. We had a couple of comments in the chat. We've still got 6.5 minutes left till halftime ends, but let's swing over and look at this. A lot of people complaining about the style of play in this first half, and I think you saw the numbers as you were coming in. The points per possession, not good. Ethan Barksdale noting here in the chat, I was watching other conferences over the weekend, and the basketball is just more, I don't know, fun to watch. Will the Big Ten ever evolve its style? What are your thoughts on that? First of all, I'm curious to see your overall feelings on the style of play in the Big Ten.
Well, I think we see it every March that the run from December and January in this conference through March, what works in this conference clearly doesn't work when it gets time to the national tournament. So I think it starts, the conference has to take a long look at itself and understand really why what happens every March happens. I think it starts with the officiating. I think it's the way that the game is officiated. It allows a certain style of play to really be beneficial and be proficient in the Big Ten. And then it doesn't work in March, but everybody looks and says, hey, this team won 15 games in the Big Ten. This team won 12 games in the Big Ten. They must be pretty solid. They should be able to contend when it comes up against a 10-win or a 9-win SEC team that barely makes the tournament. And then that just does not turn out to be the case every year.
I mean, a lot of it, it gets talked about a bunch. And, to me, and as AZ Hoosier said here, it's very accurate. We've been saying this about the Big Ten for half of my life. I mean, there are some clear issues, I think. One of them is the athleticism that a lot of ACC and SEC and to an increasing extent Big 12 teams have on their rosters, and the style of play that they generally go for sometimes doesn't always produce great regular season teams. Like, it doesn't produce dominant teams. But it does work in a shortened tournament. I kind of liken it to Major League Baseball, where you can have a team that wins 116 games in a season or 110 games in a season and is clearly dominant. But that formula for winning that many games doesn't necessarily match the shortened format of the playoffs. And when you add into that the officiating style of the Big Ten, which tends to both be overly physical in terms of style of play and both overly permissive and underly permissive simultaneously in terms of how the games are called. I know that will probably confuse people, but if you've watched these games, you know what I mean.
Yes.
It creates a scenario. So, like, Purdue's a great example of this. Like, Purdue is a really, really good team this year. Statistically, they look as good as they've ever looked. But it is clear that their success is so predicated on Zach Edey not picking up fouls, and the officiating in the Big Ten essentially allows that style of play to take place. I don't know if that carries over into the Big Dance. It hasn't in 2 of the last 3 tournaments. They have the shooting from outside that they didn't have the last couple of times, so maybe that helps them. But they don't have athletes the same way that these teams that they're going to be playing are going to have athletes. And that's to some degree, I think, why of all the Big Ten teams, Michigan State has generally done the best in the tournament, because they have been the one program that has recruited the kind of athletes that other conferences tend to have that do work well in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think when you look at the grand scheme of things, I think the national conversation around Michigan State this year, heading into the year, obviously they were kind of a trendy, not only a Big Ten pick, but a trendy national title sleeper pick, or at least to go pretty deep into the tournament. And obviously you look at somebody from the outside could look at the regular season they've had and kind of wonder where does that kind of come from. And then you see when it comes to the guys that are actually on the floor making the plays, like these guys, they have the ability to run, they have the ability to make plays in space and make plays with pace that is contrary to the rest of the Big Ten. I think Indiana tried to make some additions this offseason, took some swings that were kind of geared towards getting more athletic, getting to be more, able to run in transition. And then we see whether it's because of some decision-making or the style of play doesn't necessarily appreciate that, I guess is a way to put it, that's what Indiana wants to do. Maybe they just look so out of place when they try to do that. And then it starts to go downhill and things get away from them. They have to abandon it a little bit. And I think that's partially why you've seen Indiana, even though the roster is much different, they just go back to what they know a lot of the time. And what they've known for the last 2 years under Woodson has been to go through the post. And, even if they're a team that's not necessarily constructed to be as proficient as that, I think Zion was making some really good points because I was watching you guys beforehand. I don't think Khalil Ware has been utilized nearly as enough away from the basket as just a pure floor stretcher. He's got the length that nobody else in the conference outside of Zach Edey does, but his offensive skill set allows him to be proficient out there if Indiana wanted him to be. But obviously he spends so much of his time around the basket and that kind of stuff. So yeah. I think it's a contrasting style. It's like a constant war, a double-edged sword almost, where a certain style of play works in the Big Ten, and you have to decide if you're going to try and be really good in the Big Ten to inflate a resume and, then be more attractive to selection committees, or can you take a risk like, say, Michigan State does and maybe risk your regular season for the chance where, hey, if you get in the postseason, a lot of people are still going to think of you as a viable threat because of the talent you do have on the floor. But yeah. It's a lot of push and pull with this conference, and there's not really the identity that it clearly has, obviously has gained the reputation of not being successful. And until somebody is successful with it, they're not going to shake that. So I'm not sure if maybe adding 4 teams from the West Coast that, has been used to a completely different style of play, if they're going to be forced to conform and it's going to be like an atom bomb hitting those guys, or if it's going to maybe cause an adverse effect and maybe the Big 14 right now, what they are, ends up having to make some adjustments to that sort of play style. So I'd be interested to watch that.
I have to think that, much like in football, as we've talked about, adding completely different perspectives in a cluster in terms of how the game's played, the type of recruits that you're getting in, the quality of things, I think that could move things a little bit. I also think some of it is, Tom Izzo has helped to dictate how the Big Ten has been refereed and how the style of play has gone so far. Obviously, Bo Ryan and Greg Gard have had a lot of influence. If Wisconsin isn't going to be one of the top teams, maybe their influence lessens a little bit, but we'll see. I'm going to be very curious to see how it ends up moving forward. We're getting ready to start the second half. We have 2,832 people watching along right now. It's great to have all you folks with us. Thank you for joining us. And we're going to keep rolling along here. Indiana up by 5 to start this second half of play. Keys to the second half as far as you're concerned.
I think you guys hit it on the nail in the first, kind of recapping the first half. You can't turn the ball over the way they were in the first 12 minutes. I think all 8 of those turnovers came before the under 8 timeout. Indiana looked to kind of get under control. Obviously, this team has been playing in spurts all year, but if they can just find some sort of consistency, I know they finished the half on like a 12-2 run, if you want to call it, over 7 minutes, more of a speed walk. More of a jog,
Mosey.
but
Was it Mosey?
Yes, more of a trot, a trudge, if anything. But some good defense here out of the half for Indiana. But
okay, Malik Renew has had his every game. Something bad happens to Malik Renew. He gets hit in the face. He gets hit in the junk. Something happens with him. He just got hit in the face again. But he's still in the game, and he's back in the game after the 2 fouls early. It was a nice block by Ware on the other end. No dice on that shot. Oh, Gabe Cupps is back. Oh, a little discard by Mbako, and a foul going to be called there.
Pulled the chair on him a little bit there.
I was more than that. He not only pulled the chair, he tossed the chair to the side.
Pulled him with the chair.
Get that damn chair out of here.
Get out of here.
You'll
see you later.
See the replay here. It's like that's a great acting job by Payne. I got to say that's some good. That is good acting on his part. Anyway.
I just think you look at the guard play of this team, and obviously all 8 of the turnovers have come from Indiana's guards, partially by way of the fact that they just are controlling the ball more. But Indiana had to be more careful with the ball than they were during those 12 minutes. And I think if they keep it up at this pace, then they'll do well for themselves.
Nice.
Good pass.
That was really nice pass. And a nice job again by Trey Galloway. A little opposite hand under the basket finish there.
Still every single made field goal for Indiana coming off an assist as well, 15 for 15.
Have you ever seen a game with this many consecutive assisted baskets?
I have not. No. I mean, and there's been games this year where Indiana isn't even hitting 10 assists or 12 assists consistently. And all of a sudden you've got 9 turnovers, but you've also got 15 assists on all of your made baskets. No threes though still. So,
well, I will say, and this has been brought up quite a bit in the chat. Wow, that was.
Oh, okay.
What happened? I'm so confused.
I think he like got caught between a shot and a pass. It looked like,
man, a shass, as they would say on Blazers. Nice layup by Dawson Garcia there. That was much needed. Minnesota was really flagging there offensively.
It's Minnesota's first points in a long time.
Yeah, that was. I am a little baffled by what Ben Johnson's plan is here. That was a bad. Was that a foul? Yeah, foul on Mitchell.
I was a little bit baffled by Galloway's plan there, talking about plans that are, gone awry.
I was going to say earlier, the 3-point shooting or lack thereof. This may be the team that you can effectively get away with not shooting threes against and still do well because, Indiana making the extra pass into the post, like they have had some wide open opportunities. They have been able to move around and do whatever. I would obviously like to see them shooting some threes. They've shot 13 fewer threes than Minnesota so far. They have made 2 fewer threes than Minnesota so far.
Yes.
Important.
Indiana's been one of those teams all season long that kind of smartly doesn't take a whole lot of threes because they know they're not going to make a whole lot of threes. So if there's going to be teams that burn you for it, but Minnesota may not be one of them.
Another ill-advised Hawkins 0 for 6 now. Nice block by Ware. I will say
Hawkins didn't have a good game in the first game either.
No, he didn't.
Wise.
He did not. That's a good point. Hawkins is he's an interesting player. We'll come back to that in a second here. He's a transfer from Howard, which you don't normally see a lot of guys making the jump from Howard to a Big Ten school.
You know, that answers my question right away because I was just going to say he plays very uncharacteristic of a Big Ten guard.
Yeah. He's definitely got small, athletic East Coast guard like written all over him.
Yes. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Malik Mack from Harvard, if you remember that game earlier this year.
That's a good pull. I like that. Minnesota has. What is this offensive set Minnesota's running? Can you explain this?
Little do-si-do up top.
What is this? It's like a square dance, which I guess is appropriate given that we're in the barn. That's a double dribble. Well, I guess they would.
Still not understood a single plan.
What is Hawkins doing? Yeah, at least he drew a foul there. Good for him on that, I guess. Foul was on Ware. That's not good. That's the third foul on Khalil Ware.
No. Credit to him, he played pretty well in the first half with only 2 fouls. So I would assume Indiana gives him a leash here.
He didn't touch him. That's a terrible call. My God.
If anything, that's not a foul on him. That's certainly.
That's a foul on basketball by Elijah Hawkins, like the game of basketball. That's a terrible free throw too. We just broke 3,000 viewers live right now. Great to have you folks on the CrimsonCast Watch Party. This has been quite a game so far, with Indiana up by 6, although Hawkins coming in here and let's see if he hits this free throw. There you go. Hawkins scores his first free throw. Mason Williams working while he's podcasting. This is what a working journalist does, folks. He types into his.
You've never seen anything like it.
Nice cut by Walker
zone
there.
Here for Minnesota.
That's nice. Wait. That's not
he's hurt.
That's bad. That's not good.
No.
Oh man.
Oh shit.
That just looked bad, like on its surface. Looked like he was fine coming down off of the layup, and then stepped wrong as he was heading up the floor. We got Tim Garl and Larry Rink out there checking on him. Let's see. Let's get a look here. You see, it was a nice pass, and then Walker. Nope. Okay. I was wrong. Yeah, just lost stabilization in his knee there. That's not ideal.
That is really tough. That's one that's tough to watch.
Yeah, so media timeout here. Don't want to speculate on what the injury might have been, but I think we're all familiar with what that might be. Let's little statistical reset. I think here is I think they're going to go to an actual timeout here in a second, but
it's not going to put any weight on that right leg. It looks like.
So Indiana, it's 35-28. And just to kind of recap a couple of things going on here. So Minnesota's shooting has dropped to 31%. They've only got 11 made baskets on the game. They've had 10 turnovers. They've slightly out-rebounded Indiana. Indiana's had 16 assists on 16 made baskets. I'm quite fascinated to see how long that particular streak lasts. Leading scorers right now for Minnesota, Farrell Payne is got 8 points. Mitchell's got 7. Cam Christie and Parker Fox have 5 apiece. And then Dawson Garcia only with 2 and Hawkins with 1. For Indiana, Khalil Ware still leading with 12. Trey Galloway's got 9. Mbako's got 6. Anthony Walker, who's injured, with 6. And then Malik Renew with 2. And that's basically it. Obviously, hopefully Anthony Walker's okay. When he's playing well, he's a nice relief piece and gives Indiana a different look in the front court, which they've had to have given the foul trouble that they've dealt with over the course of the last several games in terms of their bigs. Peyton Sparks does not give you quite the same change of pace. And so I'm interested to see what they do moving forward. I mean, this is kind of, to some degree, it'd be nice to have Caleb Banks available, but we haven't seen Caleb Banks in
a while,
month at this point. I don't know what happened to him, but Walker in there is a bit of an issue.
I would think this is, and we know Woodson has been pretty reluctant to change his style a lot this year, but I think this is when you probably go to Mackenzie Mbako at the 4 and really just try and play small, space the floor as much as possible. I'm looking, right now it looks like Indiana's probably going to try and bring Khalil Ware back into game if Stat Broadcast is correct right now. But I think if you're going to give your bigs a rest, whether it be Malik or Khalil right now, this is the chance to kind of test McKenzie at the 4, see if he can give you anything to kind of stretch the floor, but also in that, man, that just does not look good for Walker at all. And obviously we don't want to speculate at all, but it's clear his knee is injured. It could just be a sprain, but when you see that, that is rough. Clearly hoping for the best for him there, but yeah. I do think this is a time where you could try McKenzie for a stretch run at the 4 if you do want to give one of the bigs a bit of a rest here. But it looks like Indiana's going back to Malik and Khalil.
Yeah,
or no. So they are going with McKenzie at the 4 here. You've got.
Oh, wait, breaking news. Hawkins missed a 3. 0 for 7 from the field now for Elijah Hawkins.
Is that a scheduled comment to me?
It's like it's a macro that I touch on the keyboard.
Breaking news, it's 10:24.
Right, yeah. Gabe Cups, no.
Here's what I found.
Oh, there you go. Oh, Mbako took a spill. Missed
in the middle of the floor.
There's Alan Renew. See,
so there's 3 on both IU bigs now.
This is the thing. I mean, and I've been a big defender of Malik for a while. He's got to be smarter in those situations. Like you've got 3 on Ware, you're down a guy, and you just don't need to commit that foul. Let Dawson Garcia take the layup. Like the 2 points there are not going to make or break you. A 6th foul essentially on your post players is going to break you, unfortunately.
Yes.
So Indiana up 7. It's still a good spot for Indiana, although the problem right now is like they don't have any scoring on the floor. The lineup right now is Cups, Leal, Galloway, Mbako, and Renew. Renew should be scoring, but Renew's got 2 points in this game because he's barely been able to play because of the foul trouble. So you do wonder where the scoring is going to come from. On the flip side, Mason, Minnesota has no clue where their scoring is coming from either, and that's been the case essentially the entire game. They're at 29.7% from the field right now.
Yeah, defensively, Indiana's been playing really well. They've obviously been aided by some errant shooting is really one of the only ways you can put it as Minnesota's kind of approached this offensive second half, and really this whole game. But I've been impressed with Indiana's defense. I know Zion was talking a lot about how solid they've looked, and really over the kind of last stretch of the season here now, they've kind of turned a corner on that a little bit. It seems like they've started to come together as a unit a little bit. Of course, now that I say this, Minnesota's probably going to go on one of those runs because Indiana has just been playing in spurts a lot this year. But I think defensively, you have to give Indiana credit. And then I do wonder where the scoring is going to come from. I would like to see if Indiana isn't at least going to go small and put McKenzie at the 4. I'd like to see him with the ball in his hands a little bit more, kind of creating some dribble penetration for himself, or really just opening up the offense with it in his own hands.
This lineup is tailor-made for drive and kick.
Yes.
if you've got Gabe Cupps, who can shoot from three, he's like a 34% shooter from three. You've got Anthony Leal. You've got Mackenzie Mbako. You've got Trey Galloway. Galloway as the driver and the kicker in this case, and Renew being used to suck the defense in. If you're going to put some threes up, now's the time to do it. Indiana finally took their second three. They missed it. Are you surprised no CJ Gunn so far in this game?
I am a little surprised. I feel like this is a game where maybe his length, his athleticism could give Indiana a little bit of a boost. Obviously, we know he's confident enough to shoot the three and kind of create his own offense a little bit there. So I am a little bit surprised, like you mentioned, having Caleb Banks in this game, I think would be at least of benefit to see what you had with him. But it seems that the bench has been long shortened by now, and he's very clearly not in that rotation. So kind of got to, I'm assuming Woodson's just going to live with what he's got here and kind of roll with his punches. But I would not be surprised if Indiana brought in Gunn. So the lineup now,
they brought Ware. So it's Xavier Johnson, Khalil Ware, Anthony Leal, Mackenzie Mbako, and Trey Galloway.
So the ball's going to be in Xavier's hands a ton with this lineup, and there's still some drive and kick here when you've got Mackenzie, you've got Leal, you've got Ware even if you want, but he's going to be closer to the basket, especially him being the only big on the floor.
Nice slip. That was really well done. That's a goaltend. Yes, Fox. That's a goaltend.
Khalil's playing really well tonight. And that's understating it, but he's been the best player on the floor tonight.
Are those beards like available for purchase in every gas station in Minnesota? Like every hockey player I've ever seen out of Minnesota has the exact beard that Fox has right now.
He's at least got a little bit more trim of a haircut, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I figured he would go like full Mossy, but he has not. Oh, good. I love Indiana's plan. Okay, there's a foul there, but I love Indiana's plan of just letting Hawkins self-destruct on every offensive possession. This has worked out quite well so far for them.
Yes. That's also now 3 fouls on McKenzie, who I believe picked up that foul there. So Indiana's front court options are starting to run into a little bit of issue, but obviously Hawkins not having a game to remember, 0 for 8 now.
It is a game to remember. It may not be a game he wants to remember.
Not one that he would choose to remember, I think.
Oh, there he goes again. What was that? Another foul? Did they call it foul?
In the most simple terms, he just went 0 for 9.
Wow. No, he didn't, because there was a foul. Yeah.
Okay.
That is an awful bailout call. These officials should be ashamed of themselves for that one. Wow. I don't know how this is the thing. I'm all for
Fox looks like he's going to the line, so it might be on the rebound attempt.
Was there a rebound there?
Well, there was certainly a rebound to be had. We know the shot wasn't close.
Can we get a replay? Minnesota continuing to miss free throws feels like a good strategy for them. They're at 6 for 10 right now, I think.
Mike Woodson not too pleased. 6 of 11 now.
Now they're 6 of 11.
I am looking at the stat broadcast, which is
don't do that. They were 5 for 10. Now they're 6 for 11. I had the math wrong. So
I'm getting myself confused because I think I've got the broadcast on delay to match up, but I may be actually behind you. But I'm looking at the broadcast, the stats right next to it. There's a good pass.
It's a nice 3 attempt. No. Yeah. Leo's got to be stronger with that rebound. Yeah, Hawkins passed it off. That's nice. Oh, God. Seriously? Okay, so what happened?
I believe they called a charge there on McKenzie.
No. Well, they called an offensive foul on Fox. Okay, so they did call it. So that's
a charge against McKenzie, I should say.
Fox looks completely shocked as to the rest. Let's see what this looks like.
The fan in the stands looks like he's just seen a dog ran over.
I'm not sure how that was really fortuitous for Indiana. Let's just keep it at that.
McKenzie definitely just called a break.
Yes. That's a makeup for that horrific foul that they called on the last possession. All right. I don't like where Indiana's offense is at right now. They've just kind of got at least they're kind of abandoning the post a little bit, which is an interesting move, although I guess it makes some sense with Renew out.
Yeah. Khalil Ware's post game has not been his strength this year.
Nice job by Ware to tip that. Nice job by Leal to pick it off. And then Galloway again. Galloway into double figures. That was that charge on Fox was a huge momentum shift. I mean, it went from 5, potentially 4 if he makes that free throw, to now it's 9.
Yes. I mean, and Indiana came down and scored on that next possession, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a 4-point swing.
I think Garcia misses the 3. Nice outlet to Ware. Is he doing every possible type of Euro step possible? Is that his goal?
It's like he lands on a pogo stick. Like he's got to come down and then go up and then go down and up again. Like,
all right. Hey, that's a great sequence. Fortuitous again for Indiana, as they could have. Minnesota was in a position there where they could have been down 4 points if Fox had made the free throw off of that the shooting foul, but instead they called a charge. And Indiana's on now a 6-0 run. And Minnesota
no field goals in 5 minutes.
Yeah, 0 for 5. Minnesota shooting 28.2%. This is as noted by longtime Crimson Cast supporter Josh Bowles. This team is so much more watchable when they run. Mason, when they space on offense. I mean, there's just like so many things that this team is much better at watching than whatever their standard gear is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of elements that when you watch them finally put it together, you're like, where has this been all season long? They would be in a much better position probably if they'd been doing something along these lines, even sort of replicating it, not even to a 100% aspect as they are tonight. Like they're just like he mentioned, there's just so many things about this team where you watch them and you're like, man, if they had just found this earlier or went to this earlier and stuck with it, the conversation around this team would be much different right now.
And I will note, I'm sorry, I have to disagree with Mike Woodson. It's not Xavier Johnson. Like, Xavier Johnson has not had a good game in this game. He has made a couple of good plays, but he's got more turnovers than assists. He's yet to score. It's not that. There's an attitudinal difference in the way that Indiana's playing that is really impressive. And it's like, where was this all season?
Yes. And it is starting, I think, on the defensive end. Did you see Hawkins finally gave up on the attempt at the rim there and he dished off.
Shocking. When you pass, sometimes your team scores.
Indiana's going to hope he does a lot less of that because it just led to a basket.
Man, McKenzie for 3. I don't know. Minnesota's defense, which, as we mentioned before, is not great. Just completely losing Indiana's best 3-point shooter is an interesting choice. And then a turnover.
Yeah, Minnesota's all out of sync right now.
Minnesota's 13 turnovers on the game. Both teams, I believe, were at 8 at about the 10-minute mark of the first half. And Indiana's only committed 2 since then, and Minnesota's committed 5.
And there it is again, 20 assists and 20 made field goals.
I'd love to know what the record is. I almost am like, please, nobody shoot a 3 at this point, unless somebody passed you the ball directly.
Indiana's offense is exclusively running through the high pick and roll right now.
Well, they might as well. Minnesota apparently has never seen a high pick and roll.
Well, they keep defending it the same way. Where they leave the backside open, and that's how McKenzie got lost.
And Minnesota's offense is just. This will be. Is this another one? This is another assist. Yes. Timeout.
21 for 21.
That is, I don't know what to say. Wow, that is something else. This is a really nice job by Trey Galloway. It's like, all right, you're not going to defend our best 3-point shooter. Mackenzie Mbaka with 12 points now on this game, and Indiana's up 15. And Mason, I mean, we kind of talked about it in the pregame. This is what Indiana can do, and it's also what Minnesota can let up. And I'm just really impressed with Indiana. As rough as that start was, much like we saw in that Maryland game, they seem to figure out now how to put it together. And that's been a real struggle for them all season. When they hit adversity earlier in the season, they tended to crumble. Is adversity making them stronger now?
Potentially, maybe whoever leaked the news knew what they were doing at 7:00 because they know the guys are all on their phones. They know everything. They know the conversation, what the conversation would be like if the result of this game wasn't turning out. And granted, there's still a lot of time in this game. We've seen Indiana throw away games like this before, but it is, I think, it's equal parts enlightening and frustrating to see what they can do when they're at full strength. Yep. And know that that's not what they've been doing all season long. And also, I think it's there's almost a sense of relief where it's like, okay, yes, Minnesota has been trying to give Indiana this game like all day long, all night long, and Indiana is taking it. And we've seen Indiana so many times this season be given the opportunity to run away with the game, be given the opportunity to really emphasize themselves over an opponent and not take it. And they're doing that tonight.
Yeah. That's really well stated. And look, this is the thing. I mean, it's not been a perfect game for Indiana by any means. They've had foul trouble. They turned the ball over too much too early, but they have done more than enough offensively, and they've moved the ball really well. They've not pressed things too much except for that early going, and they've limited mistakes. And I think that those things really matter. But to me, the big difference in this game, and really the big difference the last couple of games, has been the effort defensively and with rebounds, which I was talking about with Zion in the first half. When this team is at its best, and we saw it in the Ohio State games, at least the second half of the second Ohio State game and most of the first one. We saw it in the Wisconsin game. We saw it in a couple of others. We saw it in the Kansas game for large stretches. When this team is engaged with defense and rebounding, it unlocks everything else, and it gives them kind of a confidence that they have lacked otherwise. It's nice to see it coming together here. I will be curious. I'll wait for your oral history on like what turned the season around in late February of 2024. I'm sure that's coming soon, but it is interesting. And yes, Minnesota is just playing badly, but give Indiana a lot of credit for capitalizing.
Yes, and like you mentioned, we've seen Indiana not capitalize in a lot of these situations before this season. And now you're looking at a 15-point game that's at the under 12, and you're feeling really good about yourself if you're Indiana, because I think you look at those first 12 minutes of the game and you realize that you were not playing that good of basketball at all. And to still have this comfortable and of advantage in the game, I think it only makes you wonder, like, how much better could it be? Obviously, Indiana is capable of doing this now. They're doing it in front of they're doing it. Like, it's just validating it now, as Woodson's been talking about, but finding some consistency with it. That's the next challenge.
Fox, the only way he could score on Galloway was he rubbed his beard on him, which recoil in horror. So I would have backed off too, Trey. It's fine, man. Now Fox is right. Okay, will the Big Ten or somebody please tell Minnesota, like, fill your court in? My God, I'm so tired. Fox ran off the floor, had to run all the way up the sideline off the court, and then jump over the scorer's table to get back on. Wow, it's something else. Trey Galloway, nice feed. I didn't even see Leal there. Leal kind of hidden in the maroon of the
right there in the dunker spot.
Hey, okay, Xavier, just take the layup and move on, man. Don't worry about the foul there, please.
Somebody just had a good point too about doing this all on a road. Like, Indiana's not even done this much at home to be able to do this in what looks to be a subdued road environment, but a road environment nonetheless.
You got bad news, Mason. That solo drive and shot by Xavier Johnson ruined the assist thing.
I should have tweeted about it.
Bad steal there, or bad turnover by Ware. So Fox has been kind of the only shining spot for Minnesota so far, but still 13-point lead here for IU, which is nice.
I'd like to see how many field goal attempts Hawkins could get to while still maintaining just 1 point to his name.
I think he's got 0 for 12 in him. I really do. I feel like that he of all people could do that.
Starts pressing a little bit as the score gets away and the time winds down.
That's a nice kick out by Xavier there. Hey, there you go. So that's what Xavier Johnson at his best can do. That drive in, draws the defense, and Mbako really picking his spots nicely. And Minnesota, it didn't exactly leave him alone. He just hit the shot.
Yeah, McKenzie made that shot through a lot of contention.
So, can't believe the guy's name is Parker Fox. That's like a Sims character name, isn't it?
It's like a boy band generated name.
Right.
I feel like I played with a Parker Fox on like a Tony Hawk Pro Skateboarder game years ago.
Where? Hey, Khalil Ware hits the three. 3 parties up and running. 55-38, 4 for 7 from 3. Who says Indiana can't shoot from outside?
I don't know who this Indiana team is and what they've done with the other one, but they are a lot more enjoyable to watch right now.
This is, I mean, I don't even know what to say. Have we seen Indiana play this well all season, Mason?
I don't want to get caught up in like recency bias and say like, no, I don't know, but I'm sitting here actively trying to think of a time on the road, especially where they're in the clear position of power in a game and they still look like it.
Trey Galloway, as Jeff Marlowe points out, now with 10 assists, which is a huge comeback for Trey Galloway after the struggles at the beginning of the game. And, I said this earlier, like Trey tends to have a good Trey games and bad Trey games. This looked like it was going to be a bad Trey game, and he has swung it entirely the other direction. I mean, I don't know what happened or what got talked about in the huddle at that 10-minute mark or the 12-minute mark, but the settling down that Indiana has done offensively and the control that they have been playing with since that moment has been really, really impressive.
Yes, yes.
Renew coming back in the game, and Mbako getting a deserved break. I mean, he has had a hell of a game, and of course, Woodson's yelling at him for something. I'm not sure what there, but
I'm going to assume it's defensive. I think almost every single time he's got a qualm with McKenzie, it has to be something defensively related.
Yeah, which I get. I mean, and look, for those who have been around since the Knight era, that was Knight he would ride his offensive players heavily.
Yes.
For their defensive deficiencies. Just read Season on the Brink. That's essentially the whole plot of Steve Alford. But
Mike's been vocal about it too. He wants McKenzie to take the steps forward defensively.
Yeah. So Galloway, Leal, Ware, Renew, and Xavier Johnson. This is an interesting lineup. That's pretty. Wow. God, Malik Renew. I mean, I want to get Zion back on at some point and get like a draft stock update on him. He's 10 for 13 from the field, 21 points, 10 rebounds. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah, he has been, especially tonight and over the last stretch of the season, he's been making himself a lot of bread with the NBA draft combine coming up. I think he's answered a lot of questions that a lot of guys could have. He's making himself some money over the last stretch of this season.
Galloway and this, I've noticed some interesting 2-man game. Wow. Oh, no. Come on, get that. Too bad. That would have been perfect. That's a shame for Khalil there that he couldn't get that slam to go. Nice tip. Good job, Anthony. Leal hasn't scored yet, but he has contributed in a bunch of other ways. That's the second steal I think that he's got on the day. A timeout going to be called here by Indiana, I think, just to kind of settle things down a little bit. Well, okay. First of all, our live listener count right now, 3,678 people tuned in. We love you folks. Thank you for joining us. This has been a lot more fun than the first 3 we did. I was joking in talking to Mason earlier today. We've done 3 of these so far this season. The first one was the Morehead State game where, of course, Indiana was down a bunch and had to win on that Malik Renew shot at the end. The second one was the Nebraska game on the road, which did not turn out well. And the third one was that bloodletting in the rack against Rutgers. And at that point, it was like, you know what? Let's just stop. How do we brought this back, though? This has been a lot of fun. What has stuck out to you in this second half so far?
Well, first of all, I want to go back to the last time I was on this. The very last play that I was on for was that I don't even know how to describe it. The 45-footer at the buzzer at half against Rutgers. Do you remember that? I don't even remember who hit it, but that was the last one I was on. And I know we were talking about, I was like, man, maybe it's the Crimson, maybe it's the watch parties, man. Like misery loved company, but maybe it was blood. Maybe they were getting too close. But this second half, I mean, I think you're getting the best glimpse of what Indiana at its full capability can be. They're taking advantage of almost every Minnesota mistake, and Minnesota's made plenty of them. Minnesota's not been up to their they're certainly not playing their best game of the season by any stretch of the imagination tonight. And I'm sitting here trying to still wonder if this is maybe Indiana's most complete game, because outside of that first 12 minutes or so, Indiana has controlled the last 8 minutes of the first half. They've controlled every single aspect of the second half. And to do so on the road, I think it's just really impressive for Indiana, especially as late in the season as it is. They could have mailed it in a long time ago. This has been a really, really impressive performance for Indiana tonight. And I think going into Sunday is the last regular season game, right? Michigan State going into the Big Ten tournament. Like, if there's a time to peak, and if this is what Indiana's peak looks like, I think there's a lot more optimism maybe surrounding the team and the program than maybe what was thought to originally be the case.
Yeah. It's I don't know, the whole vibe the last couple of games has just kind of been different, you know?
Yeah.
It
feels like you're watching a different team, right? It just does. And I hate that cliche, but it really does feel like something has changed.
Yeah, I can't. What do you think it is?
God, I don't know. They're showing the replay of he didn't jump over the scores table. He had to jump over courtside seat ticket holders.
Hey, that's what you get for your $4,000 donation. You get Parker Fox dripping on you as he jumps over
and possibly kicking you in the head. I don't. Defensively, they look re-energized. They look more cohesive. They look together. I think McKenzie's growth over the season has been apparent, especially in the last stretch of the games. Khalil has really turned the corner into looking more like the NBA draft prospect that I think a lot of front offices have wanted to see him look like throughout this year. And it's almost odd because a lot of it Malik Renew's at the free throw line right now, but you can look at this stretch of play and really understand that Malik has not been the most important contributor in that stretch by any stretch of the imagination, because he's been dealing with so much foul trouble. It's really been a lot of Khalil Ware, a lot of McKenzie, Galloway as a playmaker when he's not making the decisions he was making in the early portion of this game, like conducting the offense, Xavier when he's in control. Like, there's a lot of elements of this team that are starting to come together. But
that's some Leo action there, blocking that shot. I don't know if he got credit for the block there, but he should have. That was a really, really nice play by him under the basket.
Trey just threw the ball four rows deep into the stands.
Well, I mean, he wanted to get Cups back in the action. I don't know. I'm trying to find another explanation for that pass. I don't know that I can at this point, but
it was a good reaction from Cups to get up off the bench and snag that. Probably saved somebody's $10 beer or something.
I know. Mitchell finally hit a 3. Good for him. That is Minnesota's first made 3 since like the 9-minute mark of the game, or the first half, I think. So
it feels like their first made field goal since that point.
You may be actually 3 for 22. That's hard to do. They were 5 for 20, I think, in their previous game. Man, that is crazy. Now, what do you do here if you're Indiana? I mean, so I'd like to note how short the bench has been tonight for Indiana. We've yet to see CJ Gunn. We obviously haven't seen Caleb Banks. We barely saw Peyton Sparks. Leo's getting some run, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, you're not seeing him go too deep into the bench. So another 3. Well, I would stop doing that maybe if I were Indiana. Maybe stop letting Minnesota have uncontested corner 3s. Minnesota at it's 0.767 points per possession so far in this game after those made 3s, which is not good for them.
I've seen better. I don't necessarily know.
That's good. Malik Renew's not, I was going to say he hasn't a tough offensive game, but he's had an offensive game that he just hasn't done much. That was only his 5th shot taken. He 2 for 5 from the field, 2 for 2 from the free throw line.
Yeah. I want to go back on your point about the bench real quick.
Yep, please,
I think especially with Anthony Walker, we obviously don't know what his status is, but obviously he left this game with an injury. If he misses some extended time,
yeah,
obviously we know Woodson brought him in just as like an experienced guy to have some more minutes, he's been there off of the bench. For these kinds of experiences, there's a bad pass, but
our guy Hawkins is 0 for 9.
0 for 9. You said he's got 0 for 12.
I said he had 0 for 12 in him. I believe in him. He's 0 for 9. He's got 1 point, 4 turnovers. He's got 5 rebounds, which is not bad. Anyway, 61-48, under 4. So this is where, sometimes we get concerns about letting up. And that's a problem. This is an interesting thing by Chris Rhodes. Is it just me, or does Malik getting in foul trouble feel like a blessing because it forces Woodson to go small? Can Woodson try starting off small with Malik being our 6th man? No. Well, that's not going to happen.
The second part won't happen.
Won't happen. I do think there is a kind of a necessity is the mother of invention kind of thing with Malik getting into foul trouble, or Ware getting into foul trouble, in that it does kind of inadvertently force Woodson into playing a style that he clearly doesn't want to play, but that, look, we can debate it, but my opinion is it's clearly at this point of the season, it is more effective than what Indiana had been doing on offense before. And a lot of it really has come in this stretch where Malik has had trouble staying on the floor.
It's just, can you bring it up without it being referred to short stats versus the long stats? You know what I mean? Like there is, hopefully, I shouldn't say hopefully, with the now body of work that seems to be growing as Malik continues to struggle with his foul issues, and Indiana continues to have to play small by some fashion, and the success that has come from it, I think it would be, is ignorant the right word? Like it would be kind of pushing it under the rug to not see the kind of success that Indiana has been able to have when Indiana is running smaller and emphasizing a more modern approach to offense. I think Indiana saw it when Nebraska came into their place and ran circles around them, what a modern offense can do. Now, how much of that they're applying to themselves because they don't have the type of scoring creators from the outside necessarily that Nebraska does. But to maybe just pick up a little bit here and there, and then also see what has been working for them over the stretch play. I mean, is it a stretch to play? Is it a reach to say that Indiana over the past 3 games now has played some of its best basketball all season? I don't think it is, like, by any stretch of the imagination.
I mean, and it's a low bar, obviously, because they haven't played very good basketball.
We're not saying it's any sort of accomplishment, but also, it is important to note.
Just to consider that, I mean, yes, they won these 2 games. They won the Wisconsin game by 4. They won the Maryland game by 5. Like, it's not like they've been blowing opponents out. And even
they did trail that Maryland game by 16?
Right. Well, and even in this game, they were up 19, and now they're up 13. And I mean, I think they're fine in this game, but it's one of those where, again, they've had trouble putting it away. It would be nice to see them just kind of put it away here and score and leave no doubt down the stretch, not let Minnesota get it into single digits or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what they do. They're taking more time. There's a lot of time on the clock. Malik put the ball up. Did he get it off? Wow.
I don't think he did. Well, the shot clock on the score bug was very wrong.
Came out of his hand before the clock went off.
The score bug on screen showed a 0 for a long time. So I think that was off.
It did. However, the light behind
the light on the rim was different.
He got it off.
That ball's out of his hand.
There you go. I was right. You were wrong.
Hey man, I'm just going off what the score bug tells me.
Hey,
I'm
man,
trained to think that's going to be accurate.
You're looking at did we lose Mason? No, he's back.
Am I
Okay.
here?
You froze, you're back. No, you're looking at the short video, not the long video.
My apologies.
You should be ashamed of yourself. No, I'm kidding. Little reset for the folks at home. Khalil Ware, 21 points, 10 rebounds in this game. Mackenzie Mbako, 6 for 12 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, 15 points. He's got 4 personal fouls, which is why he's on the bench right now. Trey Galloway, 11 points, 10 assists, another double-double for Trey. Malik Renew had a real slow game offensively, but he's back in it, and 8 points in this game. Anthony Walker, who unfortunately, if you're joining us late, looked like he suffered a leg injury that was pretty severe, had to be helped off the floor, but scored 6 points that were pretty critical earlier on in the game, or critical, if I could speak English. Nice turnover by Minnesota there. Yeah, the folks in the chat have noted that the score bug was way off in terms of the clock. I guess BTN decided to borrow Peacock's score bug tonight to just kind of mix it up a little bit.
The media deals. I'm sure everybody's talking with everybody on that kind of stuff. You know how it goes.
Yeah. So I feel comfortable saying Indiana's going to win this one at this point, Mason, which gives us kind of an interesting scenario because it's going to move Indiana to 9-10, and it'll move Minnesota down to 9-10. Minnesota has to play at Northwestern, which is probably not going to be great for them. Nice inbound to Ware, nice position, nice layup. Indiana now with the chance at a couple of things that I don't think people anticipated. A 500 record in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
And then B, they have an opportunity to get not just a single-digit seed, but a higher-level single-digit seed in the Big Ten tournament. Because if they beat Michigan State, they'll have the tiebreaker over Michigan State as well.
Yeah, so winning this one, obviously they'll have 2 wins over Minnesota. So go ahead and vault them above Minnesota on that 9-10 line in the conference. So I think Indiana's done about as much as they can at this point in the season. There's a good drive by Trey. Indiana's done about as much as they can in this season to avoid the Wednesday start to the Big Ten tournament, which is very crucial. It's crucial. And then obviously now with some seeding at play to get a higher seed, you start to increase your risk of extending your stay in Minneapolis longer than just 1 or 2 games. Like if there is a run to be had, right, it generally does not come from the lower single-digit seeds, and it certainly almost never comes from the double-digit seeds. Ohio State last year is the first time in a long time I can remember a double-digit seed putting that kind of stuff together.
Penn State
went all the way. I guess they were a 10, but they at least had the Thursday,
right?
The Thursday start. So if Indiana's got anything in the tank, I think it would have to start on Thursday, and I think they've done about as good a job as they could doing that.
The other thing to note here, obviously, would be, look, Indiana, their numbers still aren't good. They're not really in contention for the NCAA. They are in contention for the NIT, and that is something that's on the horizon. This is a tier A victory on KenPom. I don't know what it would be in terms of
looking into net rankings. What it would be right now, I believe it's a Q2. I think Minnesota came into tonight 76th.
Yeah, that would be a Q2.
So
it's one of those where you win the game and it actually hurts your
schedule.
It hurts
your resume.
Yeah, exactly. That was Memphis had that issue the other day. And that's
Indiana will improve to 5-4 in quad 2. And they are 3-8 in quad 1. So if you put those together, 8-12 in quad 1 and quad 2 this year.
What's Indiana in the net right now?
I believe coming in they were 95th.
Okay, so this will help. This will help in the metrics based stuff too, because Indiana was projected to lose this game by 6.
Yes,
and they're going to win by more than, but they're going to win. Period, which would have helped. But they're going to win by a significant margin. This is kind of what we've talked about on the podcast most of the year. Like, this is the type of game that helps your KenPom ranking. It helps your net ranking. It's you you have to win games. Oh, and Anthony Walker's back.
So I was off. Indiana came into today. Right now, they sit 101st in the net, but I believe they started off the day in the mid 90s.
Got it.
Some results have obviously changed up that kind of stuff as it impacts live. But
this is great to see. I mean, Walker, he's got something. He's got like a brace on his knee, but he's walking. Oh, and if reports are correct, we've got a Caleb Banks sighting. Mason. He's in the game.
And CJ Gunn and Peyton Sparks.
Wow.
Indiana emptying the bench here.
Man, everybody, only one person has scored on the floor for Indiana. It's Mackenzie Mbako. Everybody else has goose eggs in terms of their point total. Garcia with some meaningless points. Good for him.
I think Indiana's done a nice job, I think, here putting this game away. I don't think over these last 3 minutes there's ever been a stretch where either of us were kind of concerned about where this game might end up going. So
yeah,
I know we were talking about that. Indiana's got it at 15 right now, and unless things change.
Well, we as this winds down, I know it's late for a bunch of you. We really appreciate everybody joining in. Unfortunate there from CJ Gunn, but we really
4,000 viewers.
I mean, 4,000, almost 4,000 people watching live right now. Dawson Garcia ruining Indiana's statistical totals there by hitting that meaningless three. They're going to win by 12 instead of 15. But we really appreciate everybody joining us on the show, and this was a lot of fun. Final thoughts, I guess, overall. First of all, let me do some stats for everybody. Khalil Ware, 26 points, 11 rebounds in this game. Just nuts. He is that guy. He is playing himself into lottery consideration. Whether or not he actually is a lottery pick, I don't know. But yes, he had a great game once again. Mackenzie Mbako, 15 points. Trey Galloway with 13 points, and just a lot of just really good, solid play across the board from Indiana. Once they got over that early issue where they had the 8-point lead, they gave up a bunch of it. It didn't look like things were trending well. Indiana buckled down. This is the kind of thing we've been waiting for from this team all season, and we've gotten it 3 games in a row now. Yeah,
Indiana, I now feel confident in saying that Indiana is playing some of its best basketball that it's played all season long, certainly in 2024. First 3-game win streak for Indiana since the calendar flipped to this year. I think Trey we need to give Trey Galloway what was a pretty poor start to the game for he and the rest of the backcourt. Xavier Johnson never really got it going tonight, but Trey kind of picked up his slack. Trey ended up with 13 points, 6 of 9, 11 assists, 4 boards. He did a lot, kind of commanding the offense, especially in the second half. Khalil and Mackenzie were obviously phenomenal, and Malik Renew wasn't even that big of a factor, but 28 assists on 30 made field goals at the end.
I mean, that's a hell of a ratio, is what
Hawkins 1 of 10. Hawkins did end up with a made field goal.
12. So. Anyway, we don't want to delay any longer. Anyway, to all of you, we have 3,966 people watching right now. I want you all to go over to watch the Assembly Call post-game show. They're going to get fired up right now. Those guys will take it from here. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to Indiana basketball for a really fun road game at the barn. Indiana wins 70-58. My thanks to Zion Brown, who was on earlier, and Mason, thank you for hanging with me through halftime and the whole second half. This was a lot of fun. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah, I always appreciate the opportunity. Thanks to everybody that tuned in. It's going to be a very interesting stretch the rest of the way. So, Galen, I will see you on campus. Happy Women's History Month to everybody. And we'll catch you guys later.
All right. Thanks, folks. Again, I'm Galen Clavio. Thanks for joining us here on the CrimsonCast Watch Party. Go watch Assembly Call post-game. Bring back the Bison. We'll catch you folks on the flip side. So long, everybody.